I figured it would take about 100 eggs to do the whole freeze dryer full of eggs. A friend brought over some of his chicken fresh eggs for freeze drying. That should be enough for 2 of the trays. We prep and pre-freeze the eggs well in advance of freeze dry day.
4 pounds, 12.2 ounces, so 4 3/4 pounds.
We added enough milk to bring it up to 2,500 grams. We should have stopped at 5 pounds so that we'd have 10 pounds for the whole batch. But we always do 500 grams in the little pre-freeze pans, and so I didn't really think of that. By adding the milk now, we'll be able to use it for scrambled eggs when we rehydrate it. The immersion blender made short work of mixing up the eggs. The immersion blender is a pretty recent addition to our kitchen. I can't believe we went so long without having one.
Okay, that looks like it's well done. So we have just over 2,500 grams of eggs, so this is enough for 2 of the trays. And it actually ends up, of course, being a little more than 10 pounds. But there's enough solid in the eggs that it seems to work out. So I've got my 7x7 pans, which are called 8x8 pans when you buy them, giving just a touch of non-stick cooking spray and putting a very, very thin film of it on it, because this will help the eggs pop out of here after they're frozen.
We're putting 500 grams of the egg mix into each pan. We always use 500 grams for each pan because it's an easy number to work with. However, when we were planning on doing 10 pounds for each freeze dryer load, we shouldn't have put in 500 grams because that ends up with 11 pounds, which is a little more than we wanted.
The freeze dryer trays will hold 2.5 of these pans. Actually, it'll hold just a teeny bit less than 2.5. About a 1/2 inch less than 2.5. So when we first did this, we tried cutting one of the blocks in half and it still wouldn't fit, so we had to shave off a piece this wide out of the middle. So printed dividers that take up that extra space, and so then 2.5 of the pans will fit in here, or in on the tray. So a very light coat of cooking spray on everything, and then have to tear out the scale. Well, we tear out the scale for each pan anyway, but it's really important with the divider because it adds a lot of weight. And the divider is not liquid tight, so liquid will go underneath that divider. But then in the freezer, before it freezes, it kind of levels itself out and it's pretty even. And if you got the pan completely frozen first, you could get it to freeze around the bottom of the divider and you would have a liquid tight space. And so it's a little over, but since it's leaking underneath, I'm not worried about it. I just need to get to the 500.
For the second half of the trays, we're using eggs that we got from Costco. They're an extra large egg, which is considerably bigger on average than the other ones. It ends up only taking 46 eggs to do this batch with no milk added to it. And same as the first set of pans, we're putting 500 grams of the blended eggs into each pan.
Freeze dryers are not quiet. Got the eggs ready to go in the freezer, got the first half already in there, and some miscellaneous other stuff that was already in there. So get these in there, and of course they're liquid, so got to be pretty careful. So you can see we can get 1, 2, 3, 4. We could get, if it were clean, we could get 5 layers in here, but 4 is really easy. That's 24 pans. That's almost 2.5 freeze dryer loads. And if we clean the frost out, we could probably get 1 more layer. Oh, I know we could because we've done it. So that would give us 30. That would be 3 full freeze dryer loads ready to go. And then after they're frozen, they can be popped out and put in 2-gallon Ziplocs. We've had as many as 10 freeze dryer loads waiting to go. Okay, let's get that closed and chilling. Those will be going into the freeze dryer tomorrow. Okay, the freeze dryers had time to defrost completely, and the peaches from the last batch are put away. I'll show the water amount in just a second from that. Now I'm going to get it started and ready for get it pre-freezing and ready for the next thing on the list, which is dairy. And with this go around, we're doing eggs. So there's the amount of water we got out of the peaches. So it's actually slightly more than 1 gallon. I was afraid it was going to be even more, so that's why I put it in the little bucket, just in case it went over. So I'm going to turn the drain valve off. And get the fan out of the door, or off the door, and the little deflector piece, and move the thermometer to the underneath area. And the door in place. Now, I'm going to start it. I'm going to custom. I should double check those times. Yeah, I need to change that back to the regular. Per minute adjust times. Okay, so we almost never need that. Let's take that down a little bit because we can always bump it up as necessary. Okay, I want going for 9 for the final. Per minute adjust times. Okay, and done. And drain valve is closed. The freeze dryer has been pre-cooling for almost 45 minutes now. It's getting cold. It's down to 9 degrees, so it's ready to get the eggs onto the trays and ready to get them in the freeze dryer. The eggs out of the freezer and the pans. Whoa, don't need the ice on there. And I'm going to use these corrugated plastic to insulate the pans from the table. So get the first half and then come back and get the other half. For this batch, cold raw eggs, I'm going to have my gloves on. And I'm going to be drilling holes into the eggs to install thermometers. Okay, I'll need parchment papers. Tray 1. Get the parchment on that one. I have to keep these separate because some of them are for somebody else. And so I've got them labeled. So okay, and with that little bit of non-stick spray, these come out pretty darn nicely. So I'm just pushing up on the bottom to pop that free. And then I've got the 2 halve ones. That one did not get sprayed as much. It's a little bit tougher to get out. Come on, release. You can come out. Cheers. Wow, and that did not get sprayed quite enough either. Oh well, we'll make it work. Ba-ba-da-da-da-da. Okay, so that's the first one. So it's 500 grams, 250 grams. And tray 2, that's how they should pop out. Okay, yeah, that's really, that really stuck. So it needs a little bit more non-stick spray on that part of it. Tray number 3. Okay, and so these are Gary's eggs with the milk mix. Those are gorgeous crystal looking things. My goodness, that is great. Wow. Okay, but let's get on with it. Now this can go in there. Okay, so have them all on the trays. The cart's over at the freeze dryer. Freeze dryer is now -8, and so let's get these things in there. So, light, fluffy eggs. Okay, so the temperature is going to rise back up a little bit because I put relatively warm food in there. The eggs are about 20 degrees. In comparison to that, or it's 25 degrees warmer. So anyway, it'll cool right down. I'll double check this to make sure it's on pace to make it to -40 before it starts. If it's down earlier, I'll start it earlier. If it takes longer, I'll add a little bit of time. And is that a good seal? I can see the ring all the way around, so it should be good. So the eggs are in the freeze dryer. We pre-freeze the eggs in the 7x7 pans, and just short of 2.5 of those fit on a tray. If we completely load that, well, and we put 500 grams in each pan. If we completely load the freeze dryer, that means we're putting 5,000 grams or 5 kilo, which is about 11 pounds. The problem with that is if it's all liquid, this freeze dryer really can't handle 11 pounds real well. But on our past egg ones, I know that the solids to water, it's about a 76% water. That works out to about 3,800 grams of water. So it's about the same as peaches or just slightly less than peaches. So we should be fine. The peaches made it. If you don't have a water separator and filter, it's probably going to be more of a problem, simply because it's going to overload and you're going to get too much water in your pump. So we're in the last few minutes of this dry. I shorten it by a couple hours for the final so I can get the weights. I'll pause it and check the weights. The thermometers say that it's just about 100 degrees in the bottom tray, 120, 130, 120. So they're up to temperature. They probably are dry. Now we'll give them a double check. Got to do it real quick, because I got someplace to be in a few minutes. So cancel that out. Okay, I'll open the drain valve. Follow along. So tray 1, 1063. For tray 3, and boy, you can sure tell the difference between the homegrown eggs with the bright orange colors and the commercial eggs with the more dull color. It's beautiful.
With loading up the freeze dryer with 11 pounds of liquidy things like eggs, it's pretty much maxing it out. It probably would have been better if I'd have stopped with 10 pounds. And in general, I wouldn't put more than 8 in it on a regular basis. But with this series, I am trying to do 10 pounds a batch to get 500 pounds in 100 days.
And make sure the drain valve is closed. Restart the oil filter pump. Turn on the cooling fan for the vacuum pump, and then give it more dry time. And again, get it. It is cool. Okay, it's sealed. It's ready to go. Okay, so I'll be back in an hour and a half or something, and we'll check it. Okay, I'm back. It's almost 2 hours ago. It's been almost 2 hours since we restarted this to check it. Now I'm going to stop it and check it again. So they should be dry. The temperatures are still all good, so let's find out. Open the drain valve. Okay, let's check tray 1. Good. 1093, it did not change. I mean 63. Okay. 1051. So, gonna get the fan in there, get it started defrosting. I'm gonna turn that to low because, again, it's a bad fan. I don't want the noise. So we'll check the power usage and see what that looks like. So there's our power usage for the eggs, 28.09 kilowatt hours. And of course, it's still using 3.5 watts for the display on the freeze dryer. And then I will reset it so that it'll be ready for the next one. I'll put it back on kilowatt hours. All right, so now it's ready for the next one. So I essentially have 2 batches of eggs in here at the same time. We did some for a friend. He had 45 eggs that we added milk to get it up to 2,500 grams. And then we have some other eggs that we got at Costco, and that took 46 eggs without milk to get it up to 2,500 grams. I'm going to bag them with 5 eggs in a bag, or 5 eggs plus milk. That way they're ready to use, and I'll have the weight on them in case you want to figure out what 1 egg is, or 2 eggs, and if you're making a cake or something and need 2 eggs, you could take that out. But I want to do them in 5 egg quantities, because that way I'm ready to make scrambled eggs or something, and 5 eggs is kind of our normal size batch, and then I don't have to have leftovers in the bag. Now I'll get the weights of the eggs after they're dried and take the thermometers out. And I took the thermometer out already. And finally, 1060. All right, now we'll calculate the net weight and we'll know how much those are. So get the math done for the eggs, and again, I'm going to bag them 5 eggs in a bag, with 1 egg, 1 bag being 6 eggs, because we have 46 eggs in the 1 batch. And then I've got the bags labeled, going to crush all the eggs and get them weighed out into the individual pieces. I'm putting the eggs in a Ziploc bag and just crushing them lightly with a rolling pin, because I don't worry about them being completely powdered, but I don't want to put them into a food processor or anything that might mix in any extra air and moisture out of the air into them. So I just want to keep them isolated as much as I can. Okay, so we've got the bags, we've got the bags labeled. So these are for our friends' eggs, and there'll be 5 in each one of them. So I've got the before weight, the after weight, and how much water it needs. And again, the date that we use is the date that we put it into the freeze dryer. And for us, this is batch number 504. So I'm going to start with ours first. So tray 1. Oh, I'll pause that while I open all these bags so you don't have to listen to the crinkling. Oh, before I pause that, I should also mention with these, I'm going to bag them in pint bags. All right, I'll get those into the Ziploc and crush them up. I'm going to just put all of tray 1 in there to start with. Now, as I crush them, if I find any damp spots in there, I'll just pour the whole thing back on the trays, put it back in the freeze dryer, and give it more time. It will definitely slow down the process, though, because it's in the middle of defrost. Oh. Well, that's great. And that's why you wash the table after each batch and before the start of a new one. So in case you're a klutz, and do that. That was smooth. Ignore that. Maybe I'll just cut that out. You'll never see it. Yeah, it really doesn't need a lot of crushing or a lot of work to crush it. So that's all it needs, just a few seconds of this, and it'll be done. All right. Now I could either start weighing that out, or I could put the others in there. I'm going to go ahead and put the others right in there and add those to it. And do it one time. And just for fun, I think I will not throw these on the table. So very carefully squeezing out the extra air. And that's it, that's good enough. Now, I don't see any little damp spots. So everything's good. You would see a clump or a damp spot. And the one time I saw one spot about that big out of a whole batch. So you would never have seen it or never have found it if you were just breaking a few random pieces apart. Because in a whole 4 trays full, there was one spot of water still left in it. I don't know why, there must have been an ice crystal or something in there. Anyway, so I just dumped it all back on the tray and gave it another hour, and it was all good. But that's why I went to weighing them and taking them out, weighing them, and putting them back in to double check them. All right, so let's get these. So this needs approximately 66.4 grams.
When I finished bagging this first bag of eggs, I realized that something was wrong because the numbers I used didn't work out. I don't figure out what went wrong until after I'm doing the very last bag of the second set of eggs. I had switched the numbers of the tray weights.
Now, how to get that nicely. All right, I'm going to use a big spoon. I'm going to call that close enough. So it's not terribly full. I could get more in there, but that should leave enough space if you want to actually add the water into the bag and then mix it up. This would be a lot easier to do if you had tens of thousands of bags to do, because they make great machines for filling stuff like this. But you can't justify buying one for 18 bags. All right, And the remainder is for the one that should be a little heavier with 6 eggs. So I lost a little bit on the way, or the inaccuracies. Now for the other 2 trays, we'll do the same thing. These are the ones that have the eggs with some milk in it. So the one from tray 3, and we won't make a mess on them this time. And we'll make sure that they actually get into the bag. And tray 4. All right, and I've found so far that the ones with the milk mixed in seem to crush even easier than just the plain egg ones. Give that a little bit of a roll. And I'm not really too worried if it's not crushed 100%. It just helps for rehydrating. They rehydrate faster with the smaller pieces, or they seem to. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we'll do pretty much the same thing. All right, these get 65.8. What am I missing here? Did I mix them up somewhere? I don't understand. I'm very confused. So did I mix them up somewhere along the line? Well, that just chaps me, because I've got extra in this one and I was short in the other one. I freaking did them backwards. So I figured out what I did with the math wrong. I had all the math right, except for I grabbed the wrong weights for Gary's eggs and our eggs. So now I need to fix that by changing the weights, and then I'll have to relabel the bags afterwards. But you don't have to watch that. So fixed all the mess up. So the only problem is the weights. The weight is wrong because it was calculated on the other set of eggs. So, I mean, it's not a big deal, but it is off. It should say 67.8. So it's 2 grams off. Basically, they're all 2 grams off. So I'll get them relabeled. I'll get the oxygen absorbers in there and then close them and get ready to seal them. So I'm using 300 cc oxygen absorbers. I'm kind of squishing out a little bit of the extra air. Okay. And I've sealed it as close to the top as I can, so there's room for a couple more tries if this one has any issues like folds or anything. But that looks beautiful. Now, with the information on the bag, especially once it gets corrected, you'd be able to calculate how much you need for just a single egg if you need eggs for a recipe. So again, smoothing them out. These pint ones, because they're small, they tend to be very nice without having to do any smoothing or very little smoothing. So these bags should be big enough to just add the water directly to it if you needed to. They're also, this pint bag, you could easily get 10 eggs in there if you wanted to have more eggs in a bag. I found for our usage, 5 eggs seems to be pretty good most of the time. Oh, and after the raw eggs, I'll be wiping everything down with disinfectant wipes And I'm also going to do a cleaning of the freeze dryer real quick before we load the next ones. So I got the math worked out on these bags. I messed up by calling the one batch Gary's and the other batch ours, and I had them flipped. So the math is slightly different. It's like 2 grams difference. So I'd put the right things in the right bags, I'd labeled them the right way, but I did the math wrong. So all but one bag is labeled incorrectly. And the one bag that's labeled correctly is such a mess once I finally got it right. And it's only 2 grams. I decided to just leave the rest. Nobody else will know. I'll always know, and it'll drive me crazy, but after a while I'll forget about which ones it was and I'll ignore it. Yeah, so this one has the correct math on it. This is what the other side looks like, and that's just terrible. So anyway, they're ready to store. I'm going to put them in bin 1. It'll be on the list as 2 different items, because one is eggs and one is eggs with milk. That way it's ready to cook for like scrambled eggs that you want milk in it. The others you could portion out, since it has 5 eggs or 6 eggs and it says on it, you could use it for whatever. I mean, you can make scrambled eggs by doing it however you want, just straight eggs, or you could take out 2 eggs worth and use it for making a cake. But anyway, they'll go in the bin also. The ones for Gary will stay here until he comes over and picks them up. And we'll just have to remember that it's missing 9 little pint bags. Did I mention I was... I'm sure I mentioned I put these in pint bags. Anyway, these are pint bags. Okay, so into the storage. So this is the 3rd batch of items going in there. Huh, is this the 4th batch of items? Anyway, now it's more than halfway, but it's got pretty good amount of space still. So we get another 2 or 3 batches in there pretty easily.